Well, good morning. How are we doing this morning? Great. My name's Teresa, in case you don't know me. I don't expect you to ever be able to pronounce my last name. That's totally okay, but that's my name. Feels like I haven't been up here in a while, huh? I don't know. Feels like I've been gone. I got a quick freebie, just because worship kind of struck me for a minute. If you ever see me worshiping, once in a while when I'm worshiping, I'll stop and I stop singing and I just stand there and I just listen. Because in my mind, I imagine the day I walk through those pearly gates, that's what heaven's going to be like, just singing, voices, singing, isn't it? I don't know. That was just my freebie this morning. I wanted to offer that to you, so I thought that was pretty cool. You know, I've spent this week in awe. Have you ever been in awe? And usually you're in awe when something is really spectacular, right? Really super exciting, really great, really grand, really unbelievable. That's when you're in awe. But I wasn't in awe that way this week. I was in awe with something very surprising. I was in awe of simplicity. Have you ever been in awe of simplicity? How simple this stuff really is, how simple this Bible really is, how simple faith really is. You guys are looking at me going, what? Simple? What do you mean, simple? I got to come here every week and listen to you guys tell me about the Bible because it's so darn complicated, I can't figure it out for myself, right? Simple? Or maybe, you've just shown up, you've only been here a few times, and you're like, that's what kept me from the doors, is so complicated. It's so complicated, so hard to understand this faith thing. But see, that's the funny part. Life is complicated. People are complicated. Navigating this journey is complicated. Navigating other people is always complicated, right? That's what's complicated. But Jesus is really simple. He's really, really simple. If you take a look through the Gospels and all of the accounts, I like that we have different accounts of Jesus' life. I think that was totally intentional. Good job, God. You really nailed that one. Those different perspectives, right? Because you get different perspectives from different people. And I love that the Gospels offer different perspectives, but yet they're very much the same, right? You have the same story over and over again. And if you look at those Gospels and you take a look at what Jesus did while he was here, how he acted, what he did, you'll find basically what he did was run around from town to town and pretty much repeat the same principles over and over again, right? He used some of the same words, he used some of the same stories, or stories that had similar meaning, and he ran around from town to town giving that message. There's a common theme in everything Jesus did, isn't there? And one of those lines that he used, there's those lines that you'll find that repeat often. One of those lines that Jesus used often was he would say, whoever believes in me, whoever believes in me. Like in John chapter 11, it says, I am the resurrection and life. Whoever believes in me will have eternal life. Earlier in John, it says, I tell you the truth. I tell you the truth is another one he used often. I tell you the truth. Whoever believes in me will have eternal life. Another place in John, he says, anyone who believes in me, rivers of living water will flow out from the person's heart. Whoever believes in me. And in Mark, he says, anyone who believes in me will be baptized and will be saved. So that whoever believes in me, he used that phrase over and over and over again. And see, that's the issue that we get wrapped up. We get wrapped up in this sin thing. We forget about that, whoever believes in me, and we're worried about putting our sins in this hierarchy, right? Like this sin here, ooh, pretty bad, probably not forgivable. This one here, not bad. I'm sure he can forgive me about that. I bet I can do that one a couple more times, and I'll still be cool to get through the pearly gates, right? Because it's one of the lower ones. See, we get wrapped up in all this stuff, and whether our sins are going to get us into heaven or get us into hell, or what they're going to do with us, or what God's going to think of them, or how big mine is and how small his is, that's where we get wrapped up, but it's really very simple. Eternal life comes down to one thing: whoever believes in me. Whoever believes in me. Now, it's important to keep that simplicity in mind this morning because we're going to talk about something that seems very complex. We're going to talk about miracles this morning. See, we have this natural tendency to make ourselves ineligible for miracles, don't we? We make ourselves ineligible. We say things like, well, there's people out there that have real needs they need real miracles. Like He's not really worried about the miracle of this car that I need when people are, there's people dying, starving out there, My miracle isn't so needed. God's got better miracles to grant. Who am I to ask for that? We do that. Or we think, we're not good enough for the miracle. Like, my gosh, Betty Lou over here, she's been doing everything right, following every principle in the Bible, and she needs this miracle. I'm not doing that. Gosh, half the time I'm not even a very good Christian. Maybe I don't deserve a miracle. That's the liar putting that through your head. And I want you to start recognizing every time you hear that, that is not from God, that is from the liar. And he's putting that thought through your head, so you do disqualify yourself from a miracle. So every time that runs through your mind this morning, every time those thoughts go through, I want you to stop it, and I want you to say, whoever believes in me. Because that is the only qualification you need this morning for a miracle in your life. That's the only one. So let's take a look at another verse that talks about this, whoever believes in me. It's in the book of John, chapter 14, verse 12. And let's take a look at that. And actually, can we get that up on the screen? Because I want us to read this together. But I want to do this in a way. When we get to a comma, I want you to stop. So we're just going to read each section of this verse. And when you get to the comma, I want you to stop. All right, can we get John 14:12? Thank you. All right, so let's start with that first section, up to the first comma. Are you ready? I tell you the truth. I love that saying. Jesus uses that a lot. Why does he use that? And I started thinking about why does he use that, and I looked through some different verses, and I think he uses that when he has something important to say. Like when you go to somebody and you're like, you really need to listen to me. You really need to listen to me. Or you say, I swear to you this is the truth. See, Jesus doesn't swear, so he just says, I tell you the truth, right? So it's important. It's an important verse that he's ready, it's an important thing he's going to say to you. He says, I tell you the truth. All right, now let's look at that next line. We already know how this starts, right? All right. Anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done. What? Wait a minute. Will do the same, what? The same works he has done. Let's think about who's saying this. Jesus is saying this, right? That's the guy who made wine out of water, the guy who rose people from the dead, the guy who cured lepers, the guy who walked on water. That guy. That guy is saying to you, you will do the same works I have done, the same works he has done. Pretty powerful, huh? But wait, it gets better, because let's read that next little section. And even greater works. Even greater works than Jesus. We're going to top that. We're going to top walking on water. We're going to top turning water to wine. We're going to top that, is what he's saying. Even greater works. I don't know if I can do this. Let's see why he says we're going to do this. What does that last line say? Because I am going to be with the Father. He says, I tell you the truth. Anyone who believes in me will do the same works I have done, and even greater works, because I am going to be with the Father. That's what David was talking about when we were worshiping. He has left us this Spirit to do even greater works than he has done. So for a moment this morning, let's entertain the thought of bringing a miracle into our life. Because Jesus said he was telling us the truth, right? That's what he said. He said he was telling us the truth. He said the miraculous works that he did, we could do. And not only could we do, but we could do more than that. He was saying miraculous works are not only possible, but available to us. Let me say that one more time. They're not only possible, but available to us. Because sometimes we believe they're possible, but they are not available to me, right? That happens to that guy over there, not to me. They're available to us. Now, usually when I speak to you, I speak from real-life experiences. I like to bring in something that's already happened and I tell you about it so that you can believe and I can convince you that these things really work. That's usually what I'm coming in here doing, but I got to be honest with you today. I think I might be one of those people that listens to those little thoughts that the liar puts through my head. I might be one of those people that doesn't think that miracles are available to me. Now, I don't think miracles are not possible because I've seen them. I've seen miracles. I've seen things happen that shouldn't have happened. I've seen things come together in ways that just, there is no other explanation. However, I don't know that I've been bold enough to actually go to the throne and ask for a miracle. I don't know that I've actually sat down and requested a miracle, because once you sit down, you get those thoughts going through your head and you think, oh, I'm not worthy of this. Just do whatever your will is, God. Right? We think we have to do whatever his will is because we're praying to somebody who's already predestined what's going to happen, right? So we have to do our will. We have to do whatever his will is. But here's the thing. He can work his will around anything, can he? And he loves to give you miracles. So today I'm going to go to the throne and I'm going to ask for a miracle. And I want you all to do the same with me. I want us all to go to the throne today and ask for a miracle, because there is something in your life. I've identified two areas that I have exhausted all human means possible. I have tried everything. I have done everything. 2 areas that I can't do without some divine intervention. I found 2. One is in my personal life, one is in the church. And I want you to sit and I want you to think today as I speak to you. I want you to think about a miracle, something that you need in your life. Something that you've exhausted all means, that you have no other way to do this but by some divine intervention. I want you to think about that as we go through this today. I mean, that's why we came here this morning, right? We came in because our train's a little off the track in some area of our life, if not all areas of our life, right? Our train fell off the track somewhere, and we came in today because we're hoping that God's going to pick up our little caboose and put it back on the track, right? Because if he picks up our little caboose and puts it back on the track, then you know what we can do? Then we can go out and we can tell all these other people about this whoever believes in me thing. Because once our caboose is on the track, then we can do this, right? That's what we're thinking this morning. That's why we're here. So why aren't we asking for these miracles? So if you're a note taker, I've gotten the bulletin some notes. I like taking notes, keeps me on track, and then I don't go off on too many tangents telling you about things that you don't care about. So if you're taking notes, but we're going to look at the types of miracles that God actually will put in real life for us. Now, if you take a look at the whole Bible, start to finish, there's well over 100 miracles in there, right? Not just Jesus. There are miracles happened before Jesus showed up. So there's lots of miracles in there. I mean, everything from like talking donkeys and parting seas, right, to the new stuff that we know, the resurrection and the healing the lepers, and there's all kinds of miracles. But if you're like me, I'm what they call, I don't know if anybody knows about disc profiles, but I'm a C. And a C means that I like details. And what I do is that I take things and I put them into categories because they fit so well that way. In my brain, I put things into categories. I wish I could draw you a picture of what's in here. Like grocery shopping goes into this category, laundry, you know, I have different categories that I put things in. So I put these miracles in categories so we could understand them a little better. And the very first type of miracle that you see in everyday life is the miracle of God's creation. The miracle of God's creation. And David actually talks about that miracle in the book of Psalms. He says, in Psalm 139, he says, I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. David is saying in that psalm, God, I see this thing that you've made, and I can't deny that you exist. Have you ever had that moment? I remember back probably about 10 years ago, I was probably more than 100 pounds heavier than I am right now. And I remember I got to the point where I wanted to lose weight. So this is what I did. I decided, well, I'll just skip breakfast. Because I was getting up, I was home at the time, I was just raising the kids, I had no job, so I was getting up and I was making like bacon and eggs and toast and French toast and coffee and, you know, I don't know, some fruit, but then you have to put whipped cream all over it, and, you know, so I was doing all that because I had the time. So I thought, you know what, I'll make it for the kids, but I'm just going to skip breakfast every day. So I'd skip breakfast, and I'm like, okay, I've missed all those calories every day. I'm going to start dropping weight like crazy, right? So I'm waiting for it. I'm getting back on the scale, nothing. Getting back on the scale, nothing. Getting back on the scale, it's heavier. What? I'm down in calories. I have to lose weight, right? Nuh-uh. See, what happens, and I learned later once I started studying a little bit, what happens is these bodies don't like to starve. And when they do starve, they're not quite sure when you're going to feed them again. So what they do is they go into the survival mode. And what happens is they start taking care of things that they need to take care of, right? They start storing the fat. They hold on to that fat because they don't know if you're going to eat again. So all the food that you are eating, they're drawing the fat out and they're holding on to it. So when I would go eat 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon for the first time in the day, my body knew to suck every ounce of fat out of that food and hold on to it because who knows when this chick's going to eat again, right? It's a survival mode. Our bodies are designed to survive. If anybody's from up north, they know all about frostbite, right? What gets frostbite first? Fingers and toes. Why do your fingers and toes get frostbite? Because the blood shifts. It starts keeping all of this stuff warm, all of these important organs warm, because this is what's going to keep you alive. It could care less about the toes and the fingers. They can fall off. It needs to keep you alive. Survival. Our bodies were designed to survive. Now, there's 2 ways we can explain that. Scientists use 2 different ways. There's one way called natural selection. That means that somehow naturally, whenever these bodies came together and all the little protons and neutrons and whatever these science, I don't know, I'm not a science person if you haven't caught on to that yet, but all these things came together, and they came together in this perfect design that just so happens to make us designed to survive. Natural selection. All naturally came together. Or you can call it intelligent design. That someone or something or some power or something out there intelligently designed this body to survive. That's what David's talking about in that psalm. There is just no way, God, that something accidentally happened here. This is something that you did. Undeniable evidence that you exist. That's what David's talking about. And I totally agree with David. I totally agree with him. And you know, the moment that I remember the moment that I actually agreed with David, it was the moment that I had my first son. And you hold that baby, and mothers in here will probably agree. You are in awe. Like, I grew this thing, and now it's in front of me, and it's a teeny tiny little human being, and it functions, and it has fingers and toes, and you're like, you know, right after, you're like, how did that happen? That was the moment. There was undeniable evidence. There is no scientific theory you could have given me at that moment that would have convinced me that God didn't exist, because I saw it. There's no other explanation. The miracle of God's creation. Now, the second type of miracle you can expect to see is the miracle of God's favor. The book of Leviticus, it says, I will look upon you with favor and make you fruitful and increase your numbers. I will keep my covenant with you. This is a conversation between God and Moses. And what God's giving instruction to Moses at this time. So he's telling him, hey, here's the deal, Moses. I want you to follow my commands. I want you to do what I say. That's pretty much what's going on before this verse comes out. This is what I want you to do, Moses. You do that, and I'll do this. I'll look upon you with this favor. I will increase your works. I will make them better than what you can do. So that's kind of the conversation that's going on between Moses and God at that moment. See, the miracle of God's favor is when our efforts could not have possibly produced the results that we see, right? Like on a Sunday morning, I'll come in here and I speak to you, and I'll go out and somebody will say, oh my gosh, Teresa, you spoke exactly to my life situation. I actually read a verse this morning. It was exactly the verse that you spoke to, and you just talked everything about what's going on in my life right now. I'd love to take credit and say, yeah, I know. Pretty cool, huh? But I didn't do that. I sat down with God, my laptop, my Bible, and I wrote a sermon. I didn't plan that. I couldn't have planned that. Even on my best day, I couldn't have worked that out, right? But I love when you guys tell me that. You want to know why? Because then I know God's favor were on my words that morning. I know it was God's favor because he produced a miracle out of what I said. I didn't plan that. And you know, it's funny because I always say that once you start believing, or once you start walking down this faith path, you got like two options. Either A, you become a huge believer in coincidences. Like, I don't know, you go to the church of coincidences, because coincidences start happening everywhere, don't they? There's like coincidences everywhere, like everything is a big coincidence. So either you start believing in the church of coincidence, or you start believing there's a God. There's just no, you got one choice or the other when you start walking down this path. It's because God's favor produces coincidences beyond explanation. There is no explanation for them. You know, you hear these stories of a song coming on the radio at just the perfect time when somebody was like, I don't know, ready to end their life, and this song comes on and these words spoke to him and it stopped him in his tracks and saved the day. Like, the DJ so didn't do that. He so did not do that day. That was not his effort that created that. He came in probably half tired, drinking a coffee, and pushed play, right? That's what he did. His effort did not yield those results. That's God's favor. That's the miracle of God's favor. Now, I want to get to the final type of miracle that we can expect to see, because this is the one that we look for the most, but probably see the least. Now, why would I say that? Is this God's least favorite kind of miracle? I don't know. It's the miracle of God's direct intervention. Now, I don't think it occurs less often because this is God's least favorite miracle, or because, I don't know, the other two are more popular, or, he gets better ratings on the other two. I don't think that's what it is. See, what I think what happens with God's direct intervention is there's one thing that it requires that the other two don't. It requires a request. It requires us to ask. See, in order to see God's direct intervention, He needs permission to interfere with your life. He needs permission. And I think the only reason we don't see this type of miracle is because we don't ask. And when we don't ask, we don't make room for a miracle in our life. I did this a lot, back when Eric and I first moved down here, and we were struggling with money. We came down broke, and we continued broke for a while. And I'd go and I'd pray, God, please bring me a miracle. Bring me a financial miracle. And I don't know what I was expecting him to do. I don't know if he wanted, somehow I was going to hit the lottery without playing it, or I don't know, or somebody was just going to drop money. I don't know what I was expecting. But I would go and I would pray that. Please bring us a financial miracle. Please bring us a financial miracle. And I'd shut my Bible and then I'd run down and I would borrow money from here. And then I'd run over here and overdraw this account. And then I'd pull out this credit card and run that. And I ran and did that. And I had myself convinced that as all I was doing was taking care of things until God showed up with this miracle, right? Like, I'm just taking care of it for now. I'll run out and borrow this money here, and I'll run out and overdraw this, and I'll run out and do this. I'm just going to take care until he shows up. I'm just waiting for him to show up, right? So in the meantime, I just took care of it myself. You know what's funny? Is I'm pretty sure I trust my lawn guy more than that. I trust my lawn guy more than I trust God with my money. Because if I pick up the phone and I call my lawn guy and I say, hey, my lawn needs to be cut, I don't hang up the phone and run outside and start mowing my own lawn. Because, I don't know, maybe he won't show up. So I'm just going to run out there and I'm going to mow it real quick. And I'm just going to take care of it until he gets here. Because, I don't know how long it's going to take him to get here. So I'll just do it until he gets here because he'll show up, right? You do that too, don't you? Do you ever doubt that your lawn guy's going to show up? Do you ever doubt that? No, you don't run out and start mowing the lawn, but you doubt that God's going to show up. I doubted that he was going to show up. I ran out and started taking care of it myself. And what I did is I blocked him. He couldn't get in because I'm in the way now. Why in the world don't we trust our Creator as much as we trust our lawn guy? Why? Why? Here's the reason you should trust him. It's our next point. God wants to do miraculous things. He wants to. Like, really, legitimately, he wants to. I'm not joking with you. It's not, he really wants to do miraculous things in your life. He wants permission to interfere with your life. That's why he gave us free will, so we would choose it. So we would choose him. So we would ask him, interfere with our life. We give him that permission so he could do that. We give him that permission willingly. Willingly. Miracles are not some foolish, outlandish request that will never happen or some fantasy in our minds. These are things that really happen. And these are things that God is overjoyed to do for us. I mean, God's not only overjoyed to do miracles when you ask, but then when you get out of the way, his mind's blown, like, whoa, yes, I get to do this for him. His mind is blown by that. She got out of the way, and now I can do something. You know, there's a story in the book of 2 Kings. I like this story. It's about Elijah. And Elijah and a Shunammite woman. See, Elijah was a prophet, so he'd travel around, and he went to a city called Shunem. And there was a wealthy woman there, and she made a place for him. So when he would show up in town, he had somewhere to stay, somewhere comfortable. And she was a wealthy woman, so she went out of her way to make sure that Elijah had this great place to stay. And, you know, he kept thinking, gosh, I should do something for her. You know, so he's talking to, I don't know, this guy's kind of like an assistant guy that traveled around with him, but he's talking to him. He's like, what should I do for her? What could I do to repay her for her generosity, for her hospitality to me? What could I do? And his assistant guy says, well, you know what? She doesn't have any children, and her husband's really old. He's like, you're on to something. It's a good idea. So he calls her in, and he says, God is going to bless you with a child a year from now. This time next year, you will have a child. And you know what she says? Really surprising, but almost understandable reaction she has. She says, don't mess with me. What do you mean? Don't do that. She's a little agitated. You know why she's agitated? Because he's getting her hopes up. She says, don't get my hopes up. Don't tell me I'm going to have a child. My husband's old. This is impossible. Don't tell me this. She's kind of agitated with Elijah. You know, like, don't let me run around with these big expectations that are never going to come to fruition. Don't do that to me. She's wrong, though. She's wrong. Elijah was right. And she has a child. And imagine how grateful she is for that miracle. She's so grateful. But here's the thing. Story doesn't end at the miracle. And that's what we often think, is that the story's going to end at the miracle, right? That's the happy ending. You got that miracle. But the story didn't end at the miracle. It kept going. See, when the boy was much older, he was out in the fields with his dad, and he started complaining of a headache. So the dad had some of the servants take him back to his mom, and the boy died. So what did the Shunammite woman do? She hightailed it down to Elijah's house. That's exactly what she did. She ran down there, and I just see her bursting through the doors, not ringing a doorbell or anything, just bursting through the doors. And she's like, I did not ask for this. I told you I didn't need a miracle. I did not ask for this, and now look at what you've done. Now I'm back to disappointed. She's angry. She's angry. I didn't ask for this. Why are you doing this to me? Why did God do this to me? She's angry. And Elijah says, okay, I'll send my assistant down to take care of it. She's like, no. You made this mess. You go take care of it. But still, the assistant goes. And he goes down and, I don't know, hits him in the head with something or another, and doesn't work. So he runs back. He's like, Elijah, didn't work. Okay, let me go on down there. So Elijah stops on down there, and he goes in, and he shuts the door, and he goes into this room by himself with the boy. And he actually, it gets a little weird, he actually lays on top of the boy, but the boy starts to sneeze, and he comes back to life. That story is a reminder that we're never at the end of the story. The miracle's not the end, because here's what's going to happen. You may get that miracle that you're looking for, but you're going to find yourself up against some other odds that need a miracle probably pretty soon. It's not going to end there. But here's the good news. God wants to keep doing these miraculous things and keep doing these miraculous things and keep doing these miraculous things. He wants to. He wants to do that. Remember, it's not the end of the story. And sometimes when you get into this miracle business, sometimes God will allow those miraculous things to die. It's your next point in your bulletin. God will allow miraculous things to die. Maybe not literally, like it was for this woman and her son, right? Maybe not literally. Why? Why would he do that? I don't know. Sometimes understanding the big picture is so far outside of my ability to understand that I just can't tell you why. There's probably a million different reasons he has why. And each situation is probably a little different. But see, what you have to do is you have to be careful that when you get into that situation where he allows that miracle to die, that it doesn't damage your relationship with God. Because that's what happens, is then we have this great miracle, we have this great testimony, and then that miracle goes away, and we get angry. We're upset. And we allow that to start damaging our relationship with God. You know, I remember right out of high school, I had a boyfriend. 19 years old I was, and this boyfriend decided to take off to the Navy. And I was like 19, you know how it is. I was just crushed. Oh, he was the love of my life. You know, at 19, I had so much experience in it. So he left, and he went to boot camp, and I actually prayed. I wasn't much of a prayer back then at all. Didn't pray a whole lot at all. I don't know, I guess I believe God was there, but I didn't do much praying. But this I prayed for, because, you know, there's just some circumstances that call for prayer, whether you're a praying person or not. So I prayed for it. I prayed for God to bring him back. I prayed. And you know what? He answered me. Ended up, he had a medical condition, and he came back. He was discharged. He couldn't continue in the program that he was in. So I was ecstatic, like, awesome, God actually heard me, and he fixed this. Look at him. Who knew? He didn't even know he had this medical condition. It was a miracle for me. But then with a couple of years, the relationship kind of disintegrated into this hurtful mess. It wasn't long. I mean, within a couple of years, by the time I was 21, I was no longer dating him. I know that. So it was this hurtful mess. And I remember thinking, why? Why did God give me this miracle to turn around and let it turn out this way? I mean, he could have just kept him gone, right? We could have ended the relationship there, saved me a couple years of my life. I didn't have to go through this. I didn't understand that. I didn't understand. Now I understand. It took me about 20 years to realize, and it actually makes perfect sense. See, that was the beginning of God knocking on my door. I didn't know it then, had no idea. But see, I think he had to answer that because he had to let me know he was there. I had to know. And although it took many years afterwards for me to finally come back around to him and finally see the plan that he had, and boy, did he have a better person planned out for me than that one. Boy, did he. I'm so glad he didn't leave me there, because he had just a way better plan for me. Now I can see that. But it takes some time. So see, but God had to let that miracle die. He had to give it to me because there was reason in giving it to me, but he had to let it die because he had something so much better planned for me. The final thing the point of these miracles I want to make this morning is sometimes God will take a miracle and he actually puts it in the journey. Do you know what I'm saying? We're looking at a miracle as the destination. But a miracle's actually sometimes can be the journey. It was much like that with the money thing. Like I said, I don't know if I was expecting God to let me win the lottery without playing or what. I really did want a big chunk of money. I'll tell you that. I wanted to fix all my problems in one big swoop, take care of it, be on with it. That's what I really wanted. And I didn't get that. But here's the thing. is that I kept running out and taking care of it, and eventually I realized, okay, well, maybe I'm not quite as smart as I think I am. Maybe this running out and taking care of it isn't really doing me as much good as I thought it would. Maybe I ran out of some fix options, okay? Maybe I got to the credit limit on some things and I couldn't go any further, okay? So he had to teach me that way too in some of the circumstances, but I got to the end of my rope in it. And then what happened is I couldn't do anything. Nothing I could do. So I sat back and I watched. I watched $20, $25 come from somewhere that I never expected. I watched a little itty-bitty raise at work and another little itty-bitty raise at work. Then I watched somebody give me a meal that I never thought was coming. And I watched all these little itty-bitty miracles. All these little itty-bitty miracles. And soon I started realizing that he was going to be there to provide no matter what the need was. No matter what the need was, right down to cars to use. I mean, he just provided all these little things. And it turns out now, I wouldn't trade my $1 million miracle. I wouldn't trade it for the world, because I can't tell you on that journey what I saw. That was God. He could have handed me the $1 million and I could have been on my way, but man, he had a journey planned for me. And I wouldn't trade it for the world today, would not trade it. So he wanted to give me the miracle, but just maybe not in the form that I thought. Sometimes God puts those miracles on the journey. Now, let me leave you with something that we started with at the very, very beginning of service, and I don't know if you remember this. If you get this up on the board for me. When nothing is impossible, anything is possible. Remember, we sang that this morning. We sang that this morning. We sang it again when David came up. We sang that when